So every year I go ahead, and then this year she's like, she go ahead.
Okay, guys, yeah.
Alrighty, now that we are live, I'm gonna call a meeting to order here at 6:30 on August 12th. We have a quorum and we'll begin with pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? Alright, seeing no public comment. Do we have a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
So, I'll second.
So, Rebecca, second for Josh. All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none?
Sorry.
Alright, so old business, we need a motion to approve and sign a special town meeting warrant / notice of election. Do we have a motion? So Deb has a motion
I'll second.
and Rebecca has a second. So questions on the motion? This is just to approve for our special election for the select board vacancy, since it's going to be part of the November ballot. We checked with the lawyer. You can do the special town meeting as a ballot, which is what we're doing this time around, in an effort to try to get higher turnout than if we were to have just done a special 200-person likely attended town meeting or election. So papers are available right now to run for that position, and that person will serve for the term until June, and then we'll have another election in our normal. This year will be May 30th, or the first week of June, right? Next year.
Yeah, for the election, yeah, it'll be the Tuesday before the town meeting.
So this is just to approve for the open vacancy in November. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, that's also unanimous. Okay. Now we are going to move into new business. Tax commitment. Come on up.
So this year we are,
Oh, sorry, can you identify yourself for the viewers at home?
Sure, I'm sorry. I'm Donna Hayes, I am your assessor's agent. So as everybody knows, we're having full reval 2027, April 1st of 27. So it comes as no surprise, we are at 53% of market value this year. That means that our homestead is 13,250, and our veterans exemptions are 3,180.
What exemptions, sir?
Homestead and veterans. Because we have to apply our ratio to our exemptions, our tree growth rates, our personal property, central main power, and all of that. I did pick up $7 million in new value, which if we were at 100%, it'd be $14 million in new value, which is good. We have a lot of new construction here. So, because we have an 18-month commitment, we have 3 options in front of you. They all off by 3 cents, one way or the other. What I did highlight is I wanted you to see what the tax rate would be and what it gives us as an overlay. The overlay is what we use for abatements or any errors that we would have. Given the fact that we have higher taxes this year, even though somebody's value doesn't change, it also makes people pay attention to what their value is. Wouldn't be unlikely for us to have more people who want to come in and talk about valuation, perhaps apply for abatement. Last year, our overlay that we had was 19,750. Well, we had very little abatements, but I'm really comfortable with at least a $20,000 overlay. So the three options, if we look at the 3355, we're at $8,300 overlay. If we look at 3358, we're at a $20,000 overlay, and 3360 is a $28,000 overlay. Even though I hate anything other than a 0 or a 5 at the end, I think the 3358 makes the best sense for us as a town to have it not too much more. I mean, a nickel is a nickel, and to give us a $20,000 overlay.
Do we have any other questions for Donna?
I just say thank you, I think you answered every single question I came prepared to ask. My big question was about the overlay, because I know we've been trying to keep it down,
Yes.
so I really appreciate that.
Yes, and the first one, the 82, is just too low with this high of a tax bill for people. Because it will draw more attention to everything.
And I know you said we used a small amount, but do you know how much of the 19,000 we used?
You know, if I have it, this is the hard part of the whole thing. If I have an abatement, say you bought property and I didn't transfer it into your name, that means I have to do an abatement and I have to do a supplemental. So technically, it's a wash. Just I take it as an abatement in your name and then I send the same amount into you. The abatement comes out of the overlay and the supplement goes into the general tax fund. So it doesn't show as a wash. I don't know, maybe 5,000.
And that's where I thought we were in the 5 to 8.
Yeah,
And so, and it is a wash, except when they don't, one person pays and the other doesn't.
that's right, that's right.
And so, I guess the only question is the 20,324, is that enough?
I think it is. What we don't use does go into the general fund, goes back into the general fund. And the thing is, we don't want more than we need, because we have this year, we have next year. When we get into the reval year, we want a huge overlay. And one of the things that you can see is the state allows us 5% as an overlay, as a maximum. And on every one of those papers, if you look at line 21 at the bottom, it will, or line 20, sorry. If you look at line 20 at the bottom, it will give you how much we could take as an overlay legitimately, which is, so instead of the 672,000, we're asking for 20. So we'll be way over that in 27, but right now, we're good with the 20.
Any other questions?
Could you explain more, Donna, what you talked about in the homestead?
Sure.
And the veteran?
Yeah, so in the state of Maine, a homestead is equivalent to $25,000 in value, and that comes off your valuation, okay? And veterans exemption is $6,000. Because we're not at 100% market value, whatever percentage of market value the state deems us to be through the sales ratio analysis is what we have to apply. So unfortunately, until we have a reval that brings everybody up to 100%, we're not gonna be 25,000.
And that's part of, one thing we get feedback every year is tax bill, the tax rate only increased 3%, why did my property tax go up more than 3%?
That's right,
And that's because you're only able to take 53% of that 25,000 homestead exemption. So instead of taking 25,000 off the top, you're taking, what
Yeah.
you say, 14.
we are taking $13,250 this year.
And so because we're still waiting for our reevaluation to take place, every year that percentage has been decreasing a little bit.
Yeah.
So even if you had a 0% increase in taxes, your tax bill will look higher this year because that small percentage of your homestead exemption is decreasing. That's why we are getting this reevaluation done as soon as possible
That's
to give people that full exemption.
If they signed up for homestead.
Yes.
And I push the homestead with everybody I talk to, so.
Okay, good, thank you for that.
Well,
Can I ask a somewhat but you brought up the subject of revaluation.
Yeah,
We had another community in our area have issues with the rollout of their revaluation.
Yeah.
Are you gonna work with Jerry and us and others to sort of, I mean, I don't know what you do, cause it kinda is what it is, right?
I've done more than, I've done a ton. Education is everything, and the hard, and it isn't really the new values. What happens is, I mean, we have 33 this year. Next year will be 20-something as our mill rate. We'll go back because we're not doing a year and a half. And in everybody's mind, you're looking at the 100% valuation with the 20-something, and you're taxing me out, you know. So it's all about trying to educate everybody that 100% value does not mean your taxes double, triple. Yes, I know. We'll do the best we can.
I saw an article, was it last week, and I was like, I don't
Oh, yeah,
know how to get it out, but.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's all over the place, and it's gonna happen, and it's
Brunswick,
nothing,
Yarmouth,
yeah.
Lewis,
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
understanding with the reevaluation is about a third of people see their valuation increase, about a third see it decrease, and about a third
Stay
stay the same. But it's usually the third that saw the increase who
As the loudest.
come to the town office. Most people don't come up and say, charge me less in taxes, what's going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, and the other thing is, it's not like, I mean, this is a statewide thing.
Yes.
So we're in the same barrel as everybody. We know it's gonna go up there, just how much.
For
And-
how
and-
long we've been.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say, we have got the, you know, we've got that difference where tax the cost, tables that I use today are anything like what they're gonna be.
But it would be correct to say, you know, if all of a sudden the valuation doubles, if we're not increasing our budget,
Right,
your mill rate would be less, so your
Yeah.
house is worth more, but your mill rate decreases.
yes,
And so
and if
that's-
it doubles and nothing
Yeah.
else changes, then the tax rate goes in half and everybody pays the same.
Mhm.
So it's all.
Yeah.
But you know, our cost tables aren't built for $1 million homes,
Mhm.
right? Because that wasn't even, I mean, 350,000 was the big homes here back in the day when the rebound came through, the
Mhm.
original rebound, so.
Yeah, it's gonna get.
And we've already started talking about how we're gonna get the message out, like we're gonna put something in the town report
Yeah.
about that.
Yes,
And we're-
yeah,
But I'm just gonna, I'm gonna just caution, no matter how much education we do, there are gonna be people out there that are gonna be upset.
yeah, for
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, and they're gonna scream.
Yeah.
It happened to me in Brunswick, mine went up drastically.
Did you go yell at the town office?
I didn't know, it's not the town's fault. You know,
Well,
so-
and we're right, we thought we'd put a insert into next year's town report, and then if we can put something in with tax bills that are another explanation, I mean, anytime we
Yeah.
sending anything, the more we can get out
Pretty
there.
much if it's going in the mail, anything going in the mail, we should stick this in it.
What about doing, or would you be okay with doing a video recording?
100%.
Explaining things,
Yeah.
like doing a Q&A,
Yeah.
or maybe instead of doing a Q&A with you, we do one with you.
Okay, and we have the rebound company.
Yeah,
Which we're also gonna rope in to try to, and we put as much information as we can out there, pictures of the people that are
Yeah.
coming to your houses, identification, what they drive, what you can expect, what they know, what they don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, those are the things that, and like Jerry said, it's not until somebody sees the new value that,
of course, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
they're gonna be like hundreds of
okay,
But I think having a video rather than read, like people,
I agree,
you can read and not interpret anything.
Yeah.
Seeing a video, maybe we'll get half of the people
Well,
to interpret something.
and one of the
but-
things that I did somewhere else is, you know, I did kind of like a public meeting
Yeah,
where we had, and we did it early enough, I mean, we're talking a year from now, but we did it early enough that we had applications for current use programs. and, you know, your tree growth, things that people could get into and reduce their value, but you have to do it by April 1st.
Mhm.
Also made sure we had applications, and then just general questions, which somebody always says, well, I have a stupid question, well, let's take care of it now, so it doesn't bother you all the way through.
Mhm.
So we can do something like that, I mean, we can also, you know, we could also do it like on a Saturday morning if people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, like I said, I saw that article and I was like, oh my god.
Oh, yeah,
What are we in
no,
for?
no,
And I just had to ask that question, I knew the two of you would be prepared.
yeah, no, it's, yeah, we should expect
Oh, yeah,
the worst.
it's happening all over, and
Yes.
it's still gonna be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the problem that you have is, it's such a huge jump for people, that you can't wrap your head around it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, we inherited a long absence between the last one, so
Yes,
we
we
gotta
did.
be the ones who take the brunt of
Yeah.
bringing the new one in.
Yeah.
Alright, so any more questions for Donna? Do I have a motion to approve a overlay?
I move that we accept option 2, which is the,
So you probably should move into the Board of Assessors.
Oh, that's what I meant to say, do I have a motion to move into the Board of Assessors?
so moved.
Okay, second, any questions on the motion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, we are now in the Board of Assessors. Do we have a motion to approve a tax commitment option?
I move that we accept option 2, which is the 33,580 with the overlay of 20,324.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Second, any discussion?
I agree with Donna that I think a higher overlay this year, I think there's gonna be a push for abatements, it's coming, it's gonna be huge, in 2 years. But I think with this 18-month budget, the tax rate looks extremely large, but it's 18 months, so it's really only, 2/3 of it
Mhm.
per year, which isn't a huge jump, so. I'd like to go along, but I just don't think that would be a wise move with the towns.
Yeah, I agree. Gotta make sure we're being responsible. Any other discussion? Alright, all in favor of the motion? Any opposition? Seeing none, we are good on that tax commitment option number 2. And do I have a motion to leave the Board of Assessors?
Before you go,
No.
I need your signature.
And the official ones are in the consent agenda.
I'll sign these.
I'd make that motion.
So there's 3 pages with 4 places to sign, so if you'll all sign them and Jerry will, or when Jess comes back, you'll take the original?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll sign this here.
Do you need anything else from me?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Where's
You're welcome. We're gonna go put the things in.
you motions to come out, didn't you second that?
Not yet.
I'll second.
Alright, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, we're the select board again. Alright, thanks for stopping by. We didn't have any questions for you, but.
Just in case. That's fine. Yep, let me know if you need anything.
But I,
It would be nice to have before.
7 million in new valuation, so. Really,
I know,
it's not too bad.
As long as like
I hope I signed the right ones.
We all sign?
Yeah. I think this is the opportunity to do an outreach on the tree growth and stuff like that, like I know you've been mentioning, because there's some options for folks for sure.
Thank you for that.
I'm gonna grab a water while you guys just sit you all right there.
Wait, come back.
Did I not, I thought there's 4 signatures.
You said there are 5, right?
oh, there's 4? 5? I thought there was 4 places.
I think
to
you're
sign.
right, no, 4, that was 2 on one page.
Yeah, and then 1 on each of the other
Yeah.
ones.
No.
Trying to slam it this time. Alright, thank you. Wait a minute, alright.
So it's locked, and they allow this, Jeff, it's locked, and they allow this,
Oh, thank you.
Alrighty. So our next, just kind of new business here is the review and discussion on the updated employee handbook with the human resource consultant, Betsy.
Alright.
Betsy, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Olton,
Olton.
like Holton without the H.
Olton, I was gonna say, it
Olton
looked
without the
like,
H.
it looked like that, I didn't wanna, if I pronounce the name wrong the first time, I'll never get it right, so Olton. Perfect, Jerry?
Yeah, so, thank you. So, yeah, this is Betsy, I'll let her give her own little biography, but, we met, I don't know, probably last winter. Talked about having human resources, and you guys, funded that for me, which was very appreciated. And we've been spending a lot of time updating this handbook. And I'm really proud that we got it done, because it was probably my second month working in Durham. When I read the existing handbook, I was like, oh my goodness, this hasn't been updated in many years. And, having Betsy help me with this, basically do the lion's share with a lot of consultation, was just eye-opening. It was just awesome. So Betsy, everybody, and Betsy can kind of get the background.
So yes, so thank you so much for having me. I'll just give you a little bit of background. Betsy Olton, I've lived in Maine my entire life. I've lived in Falmouth my entire life and on the same street my entire life. So, funny, assessing story, we had built our home beside my parents, and then a development went in between. So my driveway went off to a main road. And so one day I decided to pick up my mailbox and move it to the cul-de-sac because it was new. And my taxes went up $1,600 because I moved my mailbox, and then nothing else changed. So
Did you move it back?
no, and my friend said, why did you just move it back? And I said, no, I'm not gonna, like. Anyway, so I have, my prior sort of life, I handled workers' comp claims for many years, worked for MEMIC, managed an office in Bangor, Boston, Freeport, and Bedford, New Hampshire, and then I got a little, I didn't love all of the sort of fraud and all of that came with it over the years of handling workers' comp, and so I started doing human resources about 15 years ago. Was the HR director for the town of Kittery and the Kittery School Department for 6 years, and then towards the end of that, I just decided one day that I thought it would be, there would be a need for smaller towns that can't afford to have full-time HR folks to help out in this way. So I've been doing this now for 8.5 years. All of my clients, with very, very few exceptions, are municipalities, quasi-municipalities, water districts, sewer districts, counties. And over the last 8.5 years, I've worked with over 61 towns in Maine. I keep about 14, towns currently. That's about what I can handle at any given time. And so, I don't remember how we connected, but Maine's a small world, right? And
Just one big town.
yeah, and so Maine Municipal Association, there are all these affiliations, and one of the affiliations that I actually helped start many years ago, before I was a consultant, was the Maine Local Government Human Resources Association. And that's been a really great group of, I think there's almost 200 towns and cities as a part of that. So they have a listserv, and I've been helping them a lot with the paid family medical leave law for the last year and a half. I also do union negotiations and those types of things. So handbooks are one of the things that I do, and I love to mediate conflict. So that's a little bit about me, and again, I appreciate the time, and so what we have prepared tonight is really sort of the summary. It's really hard to sort of do a full, line by line comparison when you're doing such an overhaul with an employee handbook. But what we try to do is really sort of take what we removed from the old handbook and the current new laws that we really need to keep updated with, and then we have updated some of the, benefits for the employees in terms of, time off and things like that, because recruitment and retention are so difficult, especially in municipal government. What's happening now is really towns steal from other towns. There's no sort of new blood in municipal government, which makes me sad. I think it's a great field for younger folks to get into, but right now, especially in fire departments, police departments, and those types of positions, it's just, what's moving people is money and health insurance. And so gone are sort of the days of the lengty time in one town or city because of those reasons. And so we looked at that in sort of my eyes in terms of what I've seen around the state and regionally. And so we put together this handbook.
So just to say something more about that, Ralph Ponto, ex-select board member, works in Brunswick, right now is trying to steal Kim and Jess to go work over there. Just so you know, and that's what happens, is that town just start poaching good employees. So I'm not real happy about it, but there's nothing we can do, so hopefully they'll like where they're at.
Well, the other important piece that I failed to mention too is that workplace culture is really important, right? So, having a good environment where people feel like they want to come to work and feel valued also helps with that retention piece too. I think this handbook, one of the sort of the glaring things that we really needed to remove is that I think your original handbook said that they're at-will employees, and there's a big difference between the public sector and the private sector in the state of Maine, and so public employees are not at-will employees. There's due process that has to be followed before you can, do sort of any sort of negative impact or a termination, and so that was one of the things so you'll see through this, I don't know if you've had a chance to read it ahead of time, but you'll see through sort of the changes. And I wasn't sure how you folks wanted to handle tonight, whether you want to go through just me answering questions, or if you want to go through the summary. It's sort of up to you folks what you prefer.
I was fine with going through the summary and you highlighting the important parts for us, but if others wanna do it differently, let me know.
I'm okay with that too. I read through it today, so I was under it for a copy as well. So this was great.
Good.
This is wonderful.
And I don't know if we had shared either, so it was great, it's actually great timing that your labor attorney, Kristen Collins, also reviewed it, didn't have hardly any, things to change other than, it's interesting because some of the policies that were in here have already been vetted by other attorneys, but she tweaked it and her sort of, attorneys are a little bit different in certain areas, but nothing substantive that was concerning at all. So she's already reviewed it and we've made those recommended changes within, I think I just did that yesterday. Maybe it was today.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so is that good with everybody if we just kind of go through the summary? Okay. Sorry, I have to keep taking my glasses off. So again, the introduction, we removed the at-will statement. Always think it's a good idea to have a mission statement and core values, and so that's been added. If I go too fast, which I tend to do, just stop me, okay? So application and hiring, we just added in the disability accommodation and process. So, that follows the ADA, but it also follows the Human Rights Commission. So to ensure that we have a process, if somebody does have a disability that we need to consider a reasonable accommodation, that's new. We added the immigration law compliance When I say new, it's not a new law, it's just new in your handbook.
Yeah.
Okay. Removed the employee relations section, and my little paragraph was, it shouldn't be encouraged that employees voice concerns directly with the select board, because you do have a town manager form of government.
Yeah.
And that does create a lot of issues if you're allowed to just sort of have those conversations without going through the town manager. Obviously, there's a grievance process, and if the town manager is the one that they're concerned about, they have the right to go to the chair of the select board. But having sort of this open door policy is not recommended. Employment of relatives and anti-fraternization, I can never say that word, fraternization policy. Essentially, you had a nepotism policy in your handbook, but this just sort of brought it up to date, and sort of talked about what's okay and what's not. You know, my philosophy is, a lot of times you meet your spouse at work, so, that does happen, particularly if you work for a town sometimes, families start, fire departments, so it's just a matter of making sure that person's not directly reporting to whoever they're hired by.
Every place I've ever worked, there's been married couples there, 'cause they met at work, so
Yeah.
it's pretty normal.
Yeah, absolutely, and everything's fine until it's not fine,
Yeah.
right? So that's that, removed letter of employment section, basically not necessary to state that a letter of employment isn't a contract for public employees. The other thing that was different in here, it's statutory that public employees serve a 6-month probationary period. I think you had a 90-day or something in here, so I replaced that with what's statutory. The only thing that would be different is if you had a police department and you don't, they're a year after they complete the academy. And so, I'm a huge proponent of new employee orientation and onboarding. That's one of the big ways you can actually have an employee experience be positive and have them want to continue to stay. So we put that in there. That's new for the town. And that, just what that looks like is, I think I provided Jerry with a checklist of sort of things to think about when somebody's coming on board and what to provide them to make them feel comfortable, et cetera. And it takes a good year for a proper onboarding process to happen, and those are regular check-ins and such like that. So we have forms for those that have been created that you now have access to. So lateral transfer is new. It's probably not new to private sector people, but this is where if somebody comes from another municipality and is a plow truck driver in another town and they've been there for 10 years, and I think we'll talk about this at one point, I recommend, and I think you're already talking about having an actual wage scale, a wage plan, so that, for a couple of reasons, for transparency, but also to ensure that we aren't violating the equal pay law by just, providing, sort of unsubstantiated wages and things like that. But what happens is, when you have this wage scale, the lateral transfer just means that if somebody has 10 years of experience with the same job and they come over here, wherever your wage scale is, say a wage is different at, 7 to 10 years, you put them on that scale when they were first hired versus starting them at the very beginning. That's a huge recruitment tool for folks. And usually when that's new with a town, what we also try to make sure we look at when you have this sort of wage schedule is that we look at, where do the current employees lie? Like, can we consider their years of experience and make sure that there's some equity there once you institute something like this. So that's and that also would be the same with the wages and usually the same with vacation time. A lot of times, as you know, if you've been forever someplace else and you've built up your vacation to 3 weeks a year, you don't wanna start back at 2 weeks a year if you have the experience, so that's
I'm really happy that's in here, because I think that's important. I'm a public employee, Josh is too, so not all public agencies have always recognized that lateral transfer.
interesting.
In my experience, and so they can be really challenging, because you can miss out on good candidates if they're told, you're starting at step 1 even though you're coming from a step 7, and so that's really important to me,
Right.
Especially in line with what you're saying about it's a really small pool, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's now rare that towns aren't adopting this, just because they have been burned, just like you said before, then people are just not gonna come for that. So pre-employment physical is new, just meaning it's new so typically you would have a physical based upon your job classification, so if you have a safety sensitive type position, you all have class CDL folks here, so they have to adhere to the federal law, et cetera. And so they're not required, public employees that hold a CDL are not required to have their medical card, like is sort of a normal CDL truck driver would. But it's always recommended that anybody in those safety sensitive positions have a pre-employment physical.
Does that include fire department, full-time?
Yes, yep. There's just a new section in there talking about personnel files, and a couple other things that has been typical sort of in municipal government, particularly when their unions are involved, is that they'll have language in there that will say, if there's not another warning in somebody's personnel file after 6 months, then you remove it. Well, you're never supposed to remove anything from a personnel file, you can let it age and not use it against a person after a certain period of time, but you certainly don't physically remove it, so want to make sure that was in there, and legally compliant. Under section 3, this is all about employee classification, status, and job descriptions, and so end of employment, that's right, I'm looking at the summary, sorry. End of employment is new, just talking about, so under the state of Maine, other than public sector, the private sector has to pay out all accrued earned vacation time when somebody leaves, regardless of whether they leave in good standing or not, but public employers aren't required to, but most do. Most pay that out as long as they leave in good standing, and there's a definition of what good standing is, and basically it just means that somebody, provides a 2-week notice or, a 3-week notice if they're a department head or something like that. Under section 4, just again, so, I don't know, do we wanna talk about the work week that we just talked about today, or do you wanna?
I think we should, because there was something that was posted on All Things Durham about the hours of the office, and I think it would be very interesting for us to cover.
Okay, great, well, so, one of the things
Well, sorry, quick frame of reference, All Things Durham is kind of the sounding board
Sorry,
run by the community, it's not run by the town.
No,
But
every
it's
town
just-
has one of those.
But it's the one where all the conversations.
Of course, okay, thank you. Yeah, so numbers isn't really my thing, so you just have to bear with me for a second, but my understanding from today's discussion with Jerry is that the town office is open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 to 5, Thursday, 10 to 6. And so, I think in your old handbook, I can't remember how many hours it said is a full-time employee, but the full-time employee really is, a paid half-hour lunch is what I think has been occurring. Public Works typically has a paid half-hour lunch because they could be out on a job somewhere and not be able to stop and completely be removed from working to take that 30-minute break. So with the town staff, with the half-hour paid lunch every day, it comes out to 37 and a half hour work week. So that's for regular full-time employees. And then the regular full-time employees for Public Works is 40 hours. So that's typical in a town environment. Usually Public Works, works the full 40. But as far as your hours of operation, and I think that's what you were getting at, right? Is I don't know how long ago that was changed, but those are the hours that that the town folk can come in and utilize the service. one of the challenges with that is that if you have a non-exempt hourly employee, they can't come in early and get sort of set up for work without being paid for it. So oftentimes towns and people prefer to come in early and just like, I wanna get ready for the day, I'm gonna get things set up, et cetera. But unless you're willing to pay more than the 37 and a half hours, and then sometimes over 40 is overtime, you really have to make sure that you create that sort of buffer. And I think we talked about that today where it does take about 10 or 15 minutes before you wait on a customer. You can't just come in at, 5 of 8 and expect your cash drawer to be ready to go.
Yeah, there's some work that has to happen before you
Yeah.
go unlock the door, yeah.
Yeah, and same thing at the end of the day, right? So, cash out or whatever, however that process is. So we built in
Right.
that extra time to equal that 37 and a half hours that folks would be paid. Because, and I don't know if it was happening here, but I think people were just sort of working and then, only submitting their time from 8 to whatever, and that's, that's against wage and hour, right, laws, so.
And the reason for the paid lunch for the staff is because if we have one person out, we're gonna have 2 people in there, and they may have to get up at that window during their lunch. So they don't have that flexibility with coverage, so.
And that's been our practice for a long time, paid lunch.
And Maine law, if you work 6 hours or more, you're required to have a 30-minute break, but it has to be a completely uninterrupted break. It can't be somebody eating at their desk and then waiting for the phone call to ring. And so when you have, so that's the other piece too, that the law does state if somebody does, sort of work through their lunch, they can waive their breaks, in terms of having that full 30-minute break. If somebody did wanna take a 30-minute break, completely off-site and go somewhere for a walk or whatever, completely uninterrupted, then that would be an unpaid 30-minute break. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Clarify your question, yeah, because I
Yeah.
said the same.
I just want that
Yeah.
stated for the record. I think that is a great explanation for it.
When I showed up here, we were closed on Wednesdays, so we're opening up even more now.
Yeah.
We was just 2 years ago.
Okay, great, so we talked about that, so there's a new law, so the other reason you should probably, once this is all done and overhauled, if you were to have me review it every year, it would take no time at all, right? So it's recommended that it gets reviewed every year. There's so many different moving parts to laws right now. The last 10 years have been crazy. So just to make sure that we're compliant in every way. So Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is a new federal law. There's a workplace lactation policy, which was already enacted in the state of Maine. So that's just new policy in here. It does state, just real quick, that if somebody were pregnant and they need, then you would have to provide them with a room that's not a bathroom, et cetera, but you don't have to have that room available all the time. It's only when somebody needs the room, essentially. So paychecks, I think it's just a new section describing when people get paid, those types of things. Those are always important to have in a handbook. So there have not been any sort of perceived negative components of this handbook for employees, other than I would say, the one thing that we did remove, is comp time. So those who aren't familiar with the public sector, the private sector doesn't have comp time. Comp time, true comp time under the public sector is every hour you work overtime at time and a half, that time and a half goes into a bank to use for vacation. So it's not a day for day, hour for hour, it's a time and a half time that people could accrue comp time. It can be problematic in terms of just operations, and I think that, you have a fairly generous vacation policy, sick policy, and we have added 2 personal days into the handbook that's new this year. So I'm talking about it now just to say the comp time is something where it can be challenging in winter operations when you're working a lot of overtime and then
Yeah.
you wanna take the next day off and then Calvin doesn't have anybody to plow the snow. So that's the rationale behind removing that comp time.
Or they bank a lot of it and they
Yeah.
want to take time off in the summer. And then it becomes a nightmare because they only use this much comp time, but they want to bank this much time. And we spend so much administrative time trying to manage it. And so if they work overtime, we'll pay them overtime and be done with it.
Okay, so we removed the comp time and added 2 days
Yes.
somewhere.
But that's just personal days.
Those are
Yeah, and those
Yeah.
operate a little differently when we get to that section. I can explain that a little bit better, but.
And personal days, I mean, a lot of companies will have personal days. I mean, if you have to go see a lawyer because you're going through a divorce,
your
that's not
personal-
sick, that's
personal
not
days.
vacation, that's, you need those sort of days to take care of some
We have
business stuff, that's
flexible.
personal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I think when, this is what's really helpful here is that when a lot of people learned about the process, if you're not a public sector employee, some of this is foreign, 'cause like you have flex time, I had that in the private sector. I'm a state employee, we have sick days, we have personal days, we have
Right.
vacation days. And so I understand that, but think it's easy for me to realize, not think about the fact that the general public might not know this process. So this is really helpful to elucidate for people watching and stuff like that.
Yeah, I try to, and that's one of the reasons why most all of my clients are public sectors, because my brain can't go from private to public too quickly, because it's so very different. I do wanna talk about, so one of the requests, I think the employees were looking to have us advance, and I was considering it until Jerry and I really had this full-blown conversation, was to switch to PTO. Now, again, another thing that's uncommon in the municipal world is PTO. There are buckets for a reason. Some of those reasons are just the ability to understand that sick time is really, yes, it's a benefit, but it's really an insurance policy, right? But now we have this new paid family medical leave that's gonna be enacted, the benefits are gonna start May 1st of 2026. And what that's going to do is provide 12 weeks of paid leave, depending upon sort of how much you make. It's almost like acts like a short-term disability plan, but it's all paid time. So if we were to convert the buckets that we currently have to paid time off, in most people's minds, that's all vacation time.
Right.
So, right, and then they're gonna have 12 weeks of paid family medical leave for almost virtually any sort of, prolonged, situation for a family or for themselves. And so we just didn't feel it was prudent for the town to have, that liability on the books. They already, we feel, are offered really what, I think your vacation policy is great. We added the 2 personal days, but, increasing any more ability to use time like that, we just didn't feel was appropriate.
And so we have separate sick and vacation days right now. And the way I think about that is, I think that when you have a PTO model, people are possibly apt to take all of their vacation, and then they truly are sick at some point in the year, and they're like, well, I don't wanna steal my vacation days, so I'm gonna come to work sick, and there's all those sorts of issues, whereas I think that those sick days are good, because you're saving those just for illnesses and stuff like that. Quick question, this might be getting ahead of it, what's our policy on paying out vacation days versus sick days and the banking? Is that
Great question.
something you-
So we did, so again, I based sort of my recommendations on sort of all the towns that I work with. So vacation, we'll pay out, unearned,
Unused.
unused vacation when they leave. I believe it says in good standing, I'll have to double check that when we get to there. So if somebody's terminated, et cetera, they're not gonna get paid that out, because we have the right to do that as a public sector, the private sector does not. And then, what we did change under the sick, so your current sick buyout, if you will, when you leave, you didn't get, any kind of a buyout until you were here, I think 10 years, so it was the original one.
Yeah.
It was, and so we changed that from 1 year to 15, it's like you get a third, 15 or more, but less than 20, has not changed, you get half. then 20 or more, but less than 25, you get 2/3, and then 25 or more, you have all.
Of your
That's-
accrued unused sick days?
Yes, with maximums, so
Yeah.
there's maximums, in other words, you
Yeah.
can't just, accrue to infinity and
If you're
beyond.
just super healthy for 30 years, you can't.
Right.
8 extra years for you can't.
It's capped.
And part of the other challenge I think that COVID also taught us was we also don't want people coming to work sick, even if they wanna come to work sick, management has the right to send people home.
Yeah.
And have them use their sick time because that's what it's there for, to, hopefully not infect anybody else.
Sorry for jumping around here, but one other question with family medical leave.
Yep.
My understanding of that policy is that it's not gonna be people's entire wage, it's gonna be a portion of it, so.
Correct. And what you'll do with your sick time, so the law, I'm sorry if anyone's listening from the state, but the law, why we didn't sort of follow similar laws in the state of Maine, but we decided to just, go crazy with it. So what happens is the employer really has no control over whether somebody's eligible or not because the state is gonna have to determine whether they're eligible, and if somebody has earned at least 6 times of the state average weekly wage for the prior year, then they'll be eligible. That's nothing the employer gets involved in because we don't know. We won't know that information.
So 6 times what?
The state average weekly wage, which currently is, so that's also part of the benefit. So the benefit, if you're a high salary earner, the most you're gonna get each week if you're out on that event is whatever the current state average weekly wage is. And right now, I think it's $1,144, but it changes every July. So, but if you make less money, they did this sort of different formula, which I can't even recite because my brain can't really wrap around it very well. But essentially, you almost get a higher, a benefit more equal to what your current pay is if you earn less.
That was my understanding, that is if you're on the lower wage scale, you're gonna be close to your take-home wage. There's a threshold where you can't go above, so it doesn't set up so you can say, I'm gonna take a leave and make more money than I was making, but also from it's not gonna be equal for some folks, because it's gonna be a diminished wage while they're off, that was my understanding.
Yes, and what's new too in this law, so the old sort of Family Medical Leave Act and the Maine Unpaid Family Medical Leave allows an employer to say during the time that you're out, you can't accrue any time. But this new law says you can't do that. You have to allow them to continue to accrue their time while they're out. And you also can't make them use their accruals. However, we're all sort of on the same mindset. We would recommend to an employee, hey, if you wanna make yourself whole, between the check that you're gonna get from paid family medical leave and your sick leave accruals, you can certainly do that up to your regular base rate. So nobody double dips, nobody gets extra pay, et cetera. So that's, and just for purposes of, I've just about finished developing an FMLA, and we'll talk about this here. The FMLA, the unpaid family medical leave, and the paid family medical leave are all gonna be required to review, and they're gonna intersect. So it's, the policy that I'm creating, and Luke, the commissioner of paid family medical leave has reviewed my policy as well as a labor attorney. And as soon as we have a couple other pieces together, then everybody will have this policy. It'll probably be in an appendix because it's probably gonna be 75 pages long. I'm joking. It's probably gonna be 6 pages long though, because whether or not workers' comp offsets and you have to then still apply for paid family medical leave, whether or not you have short-term disability. So there's a lot of moving parts to this law that I don't think, we all really understood until now we're in the weeds of it, so.
But I think it's really awesome that we're doing this now, because when people are in a situation where they're trying to maximize that off, it's usually because something very serious has happened.
Correct.
And they wanna know how we can make this work, and when you talk about that culture of work, knowing that, yep, we know how to make this work and this is what you can do, and also for just planning for backfilling, that's really helpful for us.
Yeah, and there's one provision in the state of Maine law that's not, so I think there's 16 or 17 other states in the country that have a paid family medical leave program. But Maine is the only one that has an undue hardship clause in it, which we all don't think that's probably gonna be a thing, because how that will operate is, let's just say that somebody comes to Calvin and says, I have to have knee surgery in February, and we know that that's like a snowstorm month, right? The employer has the right to say that could, significantly impact our operations. Can this person move their knee surgery later? But the decision maker is their doctor, so I can't imagine any doctor's gonna agree to postpone a surgery,
So you can use your knee more.
right? So we're not thinking that that's really, and even the commissioner's not thinking that's really gonna, pan out to anything, but I just wanted to
So
mention
the undue hardship clause would be on the employer saying this would bring undue hardship.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Yeah. So there will be, after this gets approved or whatever, that policy will be added in when we're done with it, we're just not there yet.
Okay,
Just on another topic, I was surprised to see that we have people take off on their birthday.
So that was a new perk, and again, trying to stay competitive without, right now, we're also not, the wages aren't where they need to be, in most positions, and so I know that that's a longer discussion and more work, et cetera. Go ahead.
So, well, that was my idea, right? And the reason why that was my idea is because I believe the town feels like they can't compete with the Lisbons and the Freeports, because it's been said, right? So it's like, okay, how do we get creative then to attract people? And that was just one that came up.
And that would only be, so some places do have birthdays off in public sectors, but how they run theirs is you can take it off the week of your birthday, or, oh, I'm gonna be on vacation, can I take it next week? This is truly like, if your birthday lands on a Monday, then you have, then you can have that off. You're not, if it lands on a weekend, then you don't get it off until a year,
And in this case, on Friday, even.
right? You'd only
so
get it
you
off.
get your birthday off if it
If
lands
you're-
on a day that you're already scheduled to work.
Right.
Correct.
So.
How did the state do this?
Yeah, no, that's.
That's I think what I saw,
My only question for
but
that is, how does that work for, the January 17th birthdays, which you're gonna have a snowstorm, it's a person who plows and they say, well, I know that, I come in, work, and they don't, it's not a floating day, so for them, it just didn't work out this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's how it's,
Mhm.
that's how it's proposed right now.
Right.
Correct.
And ultimately, you decide.
Yeah, because part of me is almost like adding a personal day in lieu of the birthday could be. I'm thinking out loud, but.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just do plenty of thinking, because
And the two, I do think, so the employees had an opportunity, I don't know if we said that, they had an opportunity to look at this handbook and ask any questions and, things that they sort of, I don't want to call it a wish list, because that's not what it is, but I think most of the employees felt this was a really good, improvement from what they had received, and I don't think there's, a lot of, so we'll talk about kind of the insurance buyout too when we get there real quick. Under 4.6, 4.8, there's just a new thing in there about how to come to work, your appearance. Gone are the days that we have lists of what you can and can't wear in a handbook that can prove to be disastrous. So we just have a regular standard appearance.
I've seen some handbooks that delineating the difference of what male versus female employees will wear, and I was like, what year is this thing?
I know. Yes, yeah. Certainly there are guidelines, but that's what I like about the onboarding process, is that's when the department head says to their new employee, this is what we, what's acceptable in our department to wear, to work, so. So gifts, gratuities, conflict of interest, you had this in here, it's just a more up-to-date wording of that. I probably should have said updated, not new. Outside employment, that's a new policy, it's in a lot of the handbooks now, and I don't know maybe if you guys have that or not, but it's basically saying that if you're a full-time employee for the town of Durham, that's your primary job, and if you do decide to get a second job, you need to notify the town manager. So for example, if somebody, right now you have Fridays off, right? So if somebody decided to go get another job, which oftentimes people do on a Friday, but then you switched back to, 5 days a week. So it's just a matter of making sure that folks understand that if things change within the town and your full-time employment, that it may impact your secondary job. And just to ensure that folks understand also, if you had somebody who, was a bartender at night and they stayed out until 2 a.m. and they couldn't function during work, it wouldn't necessarily, say you can't work that job, but it would be, that's a performance issue, so, right,
Or if their second job falls on a Friday and it's a snowstorm,
right.
they gotta be able to plow. Things like that.
I thought it was pretty strong language just saying you're basically required to talk to us if you've got a second job. But I understand the need for it and why you want Jerry or the department had to have a conversation with the employee on that.
We have never had that be a problem before, and I agree with you, I feel like, but I think people, particularly that work for municipal government, understand that, and one of the reasons why a lot of people love the 4-day work weeks is because they have the ability to do excavation work or whatever they want on the weekends, but they all do understand that their primary job is their full-time job in the town.
When you said the employees, looked at the handbook, was it all the employees or just the office employees?
I'm not sure if Calvin shared it with his staff, but all the office employees.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
'cause
thought he did.
He may have.
when I see this, I see it as being, and before your explanation there, I'm still thinking through it a little bit. I see it as being pertinent if it's outside employment that could be considered like competitive with us. So like if someone's working for Lisbon on Fridays or something like that. It does feel strong for me to have to come in and say like, oh yeah, I do a little roofing on Fridays for myself or for somebody else. Yeah, or something like that, cause it's sometimes I feel like, where do we draw the line between like employer not prying too much about what people are doing in their free time and stuff like that,
And I think it's more of like just letting them know because like it's,
Yeah.
and again, reminding people like, that's right, cause I've never seen any sort of town manager say, oh, not like, it's more about like
Well,
educational.
your explanation there
It's
fixed it for me,
Okay.
because when you said, this is to let, if
Well,
you don't
liability,
plow, and like,
right?
yeah, sure, but just so you know, your role here requires you to be here on Fridays, you gotta plow.
I suspect years ago when this policy sort of became popular, there were a lot of issues with that, cause
Yeah.
usually that's what happens when policies are created.
And it's really about liability, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody tries to pull that, we can say, oh, no, it's written in the handbook, but if it wasn't in the handbook, then we'd be,
Yeah,
So we'll go through the standards of conduct, again, so political activity, that's just a new, that's a standard, there's called an incompatibility clause in the state of Maine where you can't be an employee and serve in a certain capacity on a board or elected official, I don't know all the ins and outs, but that's out of statute in Maine. So that's in the political activity. Off-duty conduct basically really tells us that we are public employee representatives of the town of Durham and that's,
sorry, I have a question, political activity, when let's look here, talks about like town employees which shall not reference or otherwise use their employment position with the town in furtherance of others, any such activities, so does that even include if someone's speaking and saying, I work in municipal government and this is what I think is great or bad in when contributing towards a political dialogue or something like that?
is that the last section of that?
Yeah, and the political activity, the fourth one where it says, town employees shall not reference or otherwise use their employment position with the town in the furtherance of any such activities where they're during or outside of work hours, whether within or outside the scope of their employment, and shall not state any personal political viewpoints.
As if it's the town of Durham.
Yeah, so what I'm asking for that is like if someone's, cause you know when people are at political activities, they're saying, I do this for work and this is my experience on how this policy is gonna impact, right? Does that mean that an employee can't say, I'm a town manager, or I'm a town clerk, or I'm a town code enforcement officer, and this would be a terrible policy for us?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That language was actually that was the language added by the attorney this week.
Okay,
So we can follow up with that, cause that's a great question.
Yeah.
You wanna?
because I know I'm getting into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty here, it's not like someone saying,
Yep.
oh, I work for the town of Durham, and if this new policy went through, it'd be terrible for our town staff, but at the same time, when people are talking about politics, what do? How is this gonna affect you? I just wanna make sure we're not infringing on people's
That's right, freedom of
That's only-
speech and all that.
That's one of the things, like, when you're posting on the All Things Durham and someone would say, this is my personal view, not my select board member view, I think that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get a little clarity there too.
Yeah, great question, we'll follow up with the attorney on that, that was brand new language
Yeah.
yesterday. Okay, and then, so expected conduct, that basically is our non-bullying policy, and so lawyers conflict in this, and so it was a non-bullying policy, and then the other attorneys have said, really, we don't wanna call it bullying, we wanna call it expected conduct. It has something to do with the potential legality of bullying. Right now, bullying is not illegal, like discrimination and harassment is. It may be someday, but it just really goes into further sort of expectation of that type of behavior that's not tolerated. And so I find that to be one of the most popular violations of policy in the workplace, and so it's good to have it in here when we're.
So I have a question about this, because shouting in public, private use of obscene gestures or stuff like this is talking about acceptable or unacceptable behavior in the workplace. Our staff workplace is often populated by people who don't work there, who may be participating in activities like this. Does that come into play of where you are allowed to ask someone to leave, saying, you know, I have the expectation that I don't get sworn at and yelled at work, and you're swearing and yelling at me on the other side of the counter, you need to leave, I'm sorry.
Yeah, great question. So obviously this is an employee handbook. It's not, you can't force, the public to adhere to it, but what the town manager has every right to do, and I always encourage that when I do my trainings with folks, is that you should not tolerate that behavior. And you should be able to tell somebody that I'm not gonna listen to you swearing at me. It violates our policy, and then usually the town manager gets involved. So absolutely, very important. And we just had training here, didn't we? Several months ago when we talked about that too, so, great question. All right, so then just updating the policy for discrimination, harassment, updating, there are new sort of, protected classes that we had to update. Whistleblower protection, that's just it's not a new law, it's just new in the handbook. Then the discipline and grievance procedure is pretty common, that's been updated. Licensing and training, licensing and certifications, just making sure that people who are required to have certain licenses for their jobs, they have to keep them, valid, they have to take their classes to make sure that they remain valid.
Sorry, before licensing there, the technology use in social media policy,
That's later.
oh, sorry, I thought she said whistleblower and then.
Yeah, I think that's an appendix,
Yeah.
that's the
Oh.
appendix,
We're not there yet to the technology use part, I thought you said that, I'm sorry.
whistleblower, I do talk fast, I apologize.
Yeah, cause I heard you say whistleblower,
5.10.
5.10, and then we went to the next section, I thought you skipped over 5.
There's an
appendix.
appendix,
It is in the
it's further
appendix.
down.
Sorry, thank you.
So let's see, so now we get into the employee leave, so, you had already observed Juneteenth, we just added it in the handbook, cause it wasn't in the old one. There was sort of vague, like, the select board reserves the right to modify holiday schedules when the holiday lands on a weekend. It just makes it much easier when you just spell it out.
Just to clarify with Juneteenth, that is a recognized holiday by the state of Maine, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure everybody knows that.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's Patriots Day, not every other state recognizes Patriots Day too.
Right, Patriots Day, I think, is only made in Massachusetts, right? Yeah. But definitely that sort of snuck up on folks, because when they enacted that, it was literally, I think, 2 weeks before the holiday. So towns were really scrambling in terms of what do we do, we're not, you know, I'm sure it wasn't just towns that were scrambling too.
Right,
So-
it's just when people make comments about it, just so that people know that it's actually a recognized holiday by the state.
Absolutely, yes, yep. The birthday we discussed, vacations.
Sorry, can we go over a little bit more, you said, we had originally talked about the policy of the select board can shuffle a holiday to recognize it if it falls on a non-work day, and it looks like you have a little bit of that written out here.
Yeah, so we have in general, if a regular holiday falls on a Sunday, the following Monday is considered a holiday. If on a Saturday, the preceding Thursday or Friday, depending on the employee's regularly scheduled work week, will be considered a holiday. The town manager shall, prior to the start of a new calendar year, distribute a holiday schedule to all employees for that.
And so this is where one of the conversations that we have had in the past is, you know, this is a holiday that falls on a Friday, but the town office is closed Friday. Do we recognize that holiday for the employees, and if we do so, do we recognize that on Thursday before, or Monday after, and then the sticky wicket there is Thursdays are long day, so that's, people rely on that evening to come into the town office. And so my read of this is that essentially at the beginning of the year, the manager will say, this is the holiday schedule we're recognizing, make those adjustments based off of the upcoming year, and you'll probably run it through, to tell us what it is and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a good thing to discuss, because that is your longer day. The other alternative would be, in other words, you know, most of the towns that have 4-day, and this is another sort of a new thing for towns, going to a 4-day work week has been huge for folks, but it took a long time to get there. So I would say probably the last 5 to 8 years is when towns started doing, you know, the 4-day. And so many towns will observe the Friday holiday on the Thursday, in other words, close the office. Some towns do though, depending on operations and the situation of the town, will still be open on Thursday, but pay the person for the holiday day.
Yeah, cause I know of some employers who do that, you know, I think like the medical field where people have to work on that holiday, they don't get that holiday off, they get paid essentially a holiday day while they're working, so they get double time.
How does it work with if there is road work, or not road work, but like plowing taking place, how does that work?
They're in.
Because they're public safety,
Right.
Yeah.
so they don't really, I mean, and that's where, again, it's a good discussion to have, because you can decide what's the best for the town that they're on. You know, you do have kind of a unique, you know, the 3 days, and then you have this long day Thursday.
I know like with my job, I work in the fisheries and wildlife, if I'm working on a holiday, I get a comp day, or I can take pay instead, and there's an option, you have
Floating
we
holiday.
have to time it that way, so that's, floating holidays, another one, I've heard, so if you're plowing Christmas Eve, you get to take December 26th off if you want, or you can take December 30th off, whatever, 20th.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's something I think, you know, really to kind of talk through a little bit, so the you know, and I don't know how you feel about that, Jerry, it's just, you know, again, it's a sort of all over the place, but I just know towns like will observe that Thursday. I'm thinking of Berwick right now, so they have a schedule, but I think their schedule is Monday through Thursday, all consistent hours, you know?
Yeah, and this came up specifically this year with Juneteenth, we recognized the holiday, and so then the town office closes Thursday, when we were talking about this, you know, being in one, maybe we need a policy where if it's on a Friday, we recognize it the following Monday, you know, the shorter days, I don't know, we don't necessarily have to hash this out at this moment
Yeah.
either.
But let's make a note of that, just to like, cause that is a good,
How many holidays fall on Friday?
Yeah.
I
mean,
They're
Good
not,
point.
they're not many.
Not many,
4th of July, you know, right, Christmas, New Year's.
yeah.
day before Christmas.
the day after Thanksgiving, but that's
Yeah.
already, so
That's
that's a
already,
Friday anyway,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So there probably aren't a lot, like
Yeah.
there's many more Monday holidays, there
Right.
seems to be, right, so, maybe just kind of talk through that, and it may, this may.
It's sort of just looking at the year ahead and say,
Yeah.
when do we have a situation that might be
Well, I think,
controversial?
and then one thing is if we're looking a year ahead, like a sign can live on the front window, that these are the days the office will be closed this week, you know, and then when you get closer, you put the holiday theme sign that says that, but then just cause we are aware that like and Josh, you brought this up, like when it's closed the Thursday, for some people, like that 2 hours after work is when they were planning on going,
Yeah.
you know, so.
That's the day I went, right? I saw you on a Thursday evening at like, what, 5:30?
But at the same time, I think one thing's interesting about us is we kind of have one cohort of employees, which are our office and admin staff, and then the other cohort, which is public works, it's like the snow decides when you work, you know, and so,
Correct.
but I still want people to be equally like credited their, what do we have, 12
Right,
days off, you know, cause that's when I think about, you know, that recruitment and retention, you think, how many days off do I get for vacation? How many holidays do you have? Oh, we have Patriots Day and Juneteenth, I'm not used to getting that one, that's an extra 2 days. That starts adding in, you know.
no, that's a great point, and I do like, I mean, for public safety in particular, there's typically like a, you know, like a floater, if they wanna take the day or something to that effect. You know, the other thing that happened that people went nuts about, I think it was last year that 4th of July was on a Thursday. I don't know, I just remember like the week of, the state of Maine decided, I think it was the state of Maine that decided to also close that Friday, so they had a Thursday, Friday, whatever it was, and then all the towns, like, then everybody wanted that, so then some, and just people.
Yeah, there's been a couple of holidays the last couple of years when it landed on a Thursday. It was announced like 2 weeks before, oh, you all can, non-essential get Friday off too.
Right.
And then it's like, well, what's the towns do, you know?
Yeah, so I do remember that happening, so it would be good to kind of put that out at the beginning of the year and see how that works for you folks, so great questions.
What are we doing with this thing?
Well, I think let's just read through it again
Okay.
in the interest of time, just making sure that there's not an unintended consequence, and maybe, you know, just in that lens, I think, look at it again.
Sorry to slow things down there.
It's okay, so under vacation, we changed the first year of employment of 40 hours accrued to now. So gone are the days where people, a lot of towns weren't giving, you weren't allowed to use vacation time for the first year you were employed there, that's gone away. And even during, you know, even during vacation time, probationary time, so. The other law that came into play in 2021 was the earned paid leave law. And that really should not have affected municipal government because that law said, you know, for every 40 hours worked, you earn 1 day, you know, 8 hours, up to a maximum of 40 hours of paid time off a year. Well, that was great for private sectors who didn't offer any paid leave, but then we had to contend with that because the law also had these, stipulations in that they would have to be able to use it within 120 days of hire. And when people said, oh, you can't use your time until after 6 months, it wasn't compliant with the law. So a lot of the towns just reverted back to, you know, typically you accrue and it's really up to management to decide whether or not you can have a day off. I mean, there's a request, you know, process. So that's sort of from the very beginning, they can request a vacation day. Whether or not, you know, it's approved, that's a department issue. We talked about PTO. I removed the ability to borrow time, I never think that's a good practice. So I got rid of that. We just added the EPL, so the earned paid leave, that's what that means, is that it now, that your vacation time meets all the requirements of the earned paid leave law, so that first 40 hours of vacation time is essentially deemed earned paid leave for purposes of that law. It's not additional time off.
Who's managing all this, Jerry, do you end up, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm HR person.
well, yeah, we do, and payroll helps us. So we're putting it
Okay.
in, so it tries.
There's a lot to it.
It's
Oh,
crazy,
I don't know.
so, yeah.
So we added the two personal days, victims of violence leave, that's another component, right now it's a state law that you have to allow someone to have unpaid leave, but in the new paid leave law, that is gonna now be paid. So that will also be updated once we have that policy where it needs to be. Non-medical leave of absence, that's just, hey, I have an opportunity to go to Africa for 3 weeks, can I take an unpaid leave? And Jerry says yes or no, essentially that's what that is for. Your winter operations and so
Sorry, real quick, which page is this now?
8.6.
8.6, page 29.
And so, does it say that the employer is entitled to that non-medical
no,
leave, or is it's an option to ask, like,
you can
I
ask
got
for it.
picked to be on Survivor, can I go?
Right,
Make
and
it afraid, I don't know.
yeah, and it will depend,
Yeah, on the Bachelorette.
you never know, you never know. So you can absolutely, and so what would happen in that case is that's when you would not accrue any time. You would have to pay your full health insurance benefit for that month, like, that's what it
So
says,
this just establishes that you can ask and be told yes for that, but, or no.
Right, and you
Whereas
would
right
want to
now, it might
quit
be,
because of it, right,
We'll lose your job.
Yeah, that's really, and a lot of unpaid leave
you might
policies,
lose Survivor.
and right.
We have a Survivor winner in town, so.
Oh, do
We
you?
We do, yeah.
That's exciting. Oh,
Yeah.
There you go.
So winter operations and I did change call out to call back because Kristen, your attorney, was confused about the lingo. So it's not changed in here, but I think we said call out, call in, and call back in the same paragraph, so we just basically made sure it was consistent. What we did and what Calvin really wanted in here too, was to include mandatory work on bulky waste day.
Oh, yes.
And that would be paid at time and a half, but so that everybody understands it's a requirement of their job.
That was an issue this year, so.
Mhm.
The snow policy, we basically updated that, called it a storm policy, cause it could be a non-snow related situation, right?
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
such a pain right now. Clothing allowance, can we just put a star there, so we can come back to that, cause that food allowance seems pretty low to me.
I was thinking about that, where is that now?
Clothing allowance, public works, $200
It's 200 for boots and 200
for pants.
right, so they get $400 total.
Good quality work boots,
Or
really
400.
300
Yeah.
plus, we actually just adopted a new policy because of the cost of boots,
So
and you can't get diesel smell out of anything, so pants I ended up paying for.
yeah, so I'm wondering if you could also include, I've not seen it broken out like this either, where it says like your pants are 200, like you could have a one clothing, boot allowance, one bucket of money that, if you buy cheaper pants and you want more expensive, you could do, let's just say $600.
Yeah, we don't have to do that right now, but I just wanted to flag that.
Okay.
Just-
Great, thank you. Bereavement leave, we just updated it, with, this is always a challenge, but I think we have it pretty good right
Yeah,
now.
it's good.
Cause everybody was the same weight before, so
Yeah.
your stepmother was the same as your
Oh,
child,
really?
yes.
Yeah, this is what you have in here is good.
Yep.
It's here.
Paid family medical leave, again, we have a blurb in there that just talks about the contribution, requirement of paid family medical leave, and we will have the full policy when I get that done. Section 9, benefits, so, something that I felt was pretty low, and it's kind of a low hanging fruit for the town, in my opinion, is that if somebody does have an eligible health insurance, so if your employee is married to a school teacher, for example, and they have their health insurance benefits with the school teacher, there's typically an insurance buyout. And usually, it's a percentage of whatever like a single coverage plan is, sort of, received every week or bi-weekly, however you're paid. So I did recommend the 50% of the single plan, for that to be increased. It's taxable benefit for the employee, it's not, like when you pay your premiums, that's a pre-tax benefit, but when you take a cash out, it's taxed. But I felt that your cash in lieu was fairly low.
Yeah, so for folks watching, my understanding of this is that if we are budgeting for a position, the full expense that we budget for includes that person taking family coverage, and that might cost the town $5,000 annually for family coverage. If that person does not take any coverage, we now say they're getting 50% of that $5,000 as payment, taxable income. It's still saving us $2,500 on the top of the total.
It's 50% of the single
It's
thing,
50% of the
not,
single.
not
Sorry,
family.
50% of the
Yeah.
single,
Yep.
so yes, single plan.
So most single coverage, do you have those numbers?
I do, so the single health is $15,477 a year.
So it would be 50%.
The family is $34,000.
Right, and so
How many
we,
employees do we have that would be eligible?
I think that you have two, don't you, that
Yeah.
currently have one?
We have one,
Just don't mention
four.
their name.
And so today we don't do that.
Today, we give them
Zero.
7%, we
Oh,
give them
7.
we give them 1,200.
yeah,
But like
Oh, I
most,
didn't think we can money.
most towns will get, 'cause
Yeah,
you're still gonna
yeah,
say,
yeah.
you're not paying that money, right, or budgeting for it, so that was my recommendation
right,
for.
and my understanding is that, the position comes with benefits, because you might not need all of the benefits, doesn't mean you shouldn't get some of that benefit, and
Right.
that's to remain competitive, but, I get it.
And that's another sort of recruitment tool too, and retention tool for that matter. So why I say eligible is if somebody's on, Medicare, it's not eligible. So it has to be sort of a group eligibility plan, so it's usually if another partner or whatever has insurance.
They are required to show proof that they are.
Yep, every year.
And every year, yeah.
Yep, there's a form for that, card, yes.
Wait, did you say we currently are doing 70%?
Seven.
7.
07.
That's why I felt that was
So
low.
budgetary wise,
Yeah, this is a budget. We can't, we can't adopt this right now,
Yeah.
because we don't have the budget, so this is moving forward.
I mean, we need to make the list of everything in here that's
Oh,
budget
yeah.
related.
Yeah, fiscal.
Everything in here that requires process support, like you need to make a procedure on how you're gonna do certain things and what's that gonna cost us to put all that together. I think there's a handful of things in here that requires
Budget.
an a budget and like an HR procedure, how are we gonna manage these
Well,
records and.
Who remembers to send the annual, please to let us know what your coverage is elsewhere, so we know.
I mean, just scattered,
Yeah.
just scattered throughout this, there are, a lot of things to manage. Like-
Well, but we're doing that now, right? It's kind of our day-to-day stuff
Okay,
and.
alright.
But what you could have though is and again, I developed this very insane checklist for municipal government, which talks about every little thing you have to do when you're, so I don't think I've sent it to you yet. We'll have to amend it for Durham, but essentially it goes through every little thing that you have to manage.
Right, making sure we're
Yeah.
compliant
Correct.
and can prove it.
Will you keep on making it, I'm sorry,
No,
you're not my secretary, but.
No, I
I don't have my paper with me.
Okay.
Okay, so life insurance, there was this premium cap paid by the town, which I really didn't understand, so I removed it, it wasn't common. It would be in the old one, so that's what has been removed. So retirement, I just wanna talk really quickly about this. You currently have, a participating local district is PLD. So teachers have Main State retirement, they're mandatory, but PLD, municipal government, not mandatory, it's voluntary. But when they sign up for Main State retirement, you have Plan AN, which that means no COLA when you retire. An AC plan is with a COLA. And so not every town, and I didn't get I can get the data, but some of the towns that I work with have gone through the process to change it to an AC plan. It will cost the town more money because the rates that the employee contributes and the employer contribute are a little bit higher. And I think I looked it up briefly and I think it's like 1.5% higher right now. I mean, it just every year their rates change, and so you're sort of a slave to those rates. The other thing that right now, you do make your main purse mandatory here. Everybody has to take it. What I would suggest to save you some money and to make it a little bit more palatable for employees is to allow them to either take Main State Retirement or have a Mission Square plan, which is like almost like a 401k, but in municipal world. And then you either take one or the other, and if you take this Mission Square, the town would contribute, let's just say 6%. That's what a lot of towns do. And that allows a couple things. If you hire a younger person, my son ran into this, you had to take Main State Retirement, and it's very expensive for a young person to just have to contribute all that much money into a retirement plan when they may not want to start it for 10 more years. So
Cause that's
this is,
16% or something like that, right? Isn't it like?
it depends. The fire department's up to 12, 13%. And right now, I think it's 9 and like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you looked up Main State Retirement, you can see the rates, the current rates. I'm just saying, it would cost the town only to develop the plan, so I think I wanna say it's $200 or $400 to set up a plan for the employees. And then they have that option to be able to choose either or, and that way, it just gives that more flexibility, and it also would save you some money if somebody decided, you know what, municipal government isn't probably gonna be my lifelong, or I come later in life and I decide I've always had a 401k, I'd rather have, a 401a through municipal government rather than join Main State Retirement. At least you have that option, and most towns provide that option. So if you were interested in getting that more information, I'm happy to provide it to folks.
What about the social security, how does that work? And like, if you have someone that comes in that's been on social security and they're older and they wanna stay on it. Whereas now, we wouldn't either sign or didn't sign a 218 form or something.
Right, but now they've removed that. That's a very new law where you are paying into social security, your employees should be paying into social security now. That they dropped that windfall provision, is that what we're talking about? Right, that's very new. So we should double check on that.
Wait, so I thought
Yeah.
even with the windfall drop, people who were in main PERS aren't paying into social security, but the windfall just meant that they could receive the full benefit for all of the years they contributed, cause like right now, if someone has 40 years in a 401k and paid into social security forever, and they come work for us in retirement, once they're vested at 5 years, they now are not eligible for their entire social security benefit, but that's what I thought changed. I thought that they weren't still paying in.
Right, but I also think it's also dependent on what plan you have too.
Okay.
In the PLD, so, and I'm not a retirement expert, I'm just know from sort of other places. So that would be something that we would wanna confirm, but at the very least, right now, you're requiring everybody to join Main State Retirement, and you're paying that contribution rate, which is high. And the employee's paying a high contribution rate. I'm just saying, if they decide, and probably maybe 75% of your employees will decide, or 80% will decide, to join Main State Retirement, but you'll still have those few people that will take that other option. You'll still contribute toward, that plan, but not to the
And
extent.
I think this is an important point to consider, especially when we're thinking about highly specialized skill sets who might be doing this in a post, first career setting. Committing to main PERS at that point could be a deal breaker for the job. So I think it's worth exploring those options.
You also, when you set up a 401A, you also set up a 457B, and I won't go into great detail, but if somebody joined Main State Retirement, they could still contribute to a 457B, there would just be no contribution on the employer side. Employer only contributes to one or the other, so it's definitely something you wanna consider, cause I think it'll benefit everybody around. Just added the employee assistance program in there, that comes with your main municipal employee health trust, right? So we have-
So, excuse me, so are we gonna take an action to do a follow-up session on this retirement options? where we can
Yeah, I
actually
think-
have a session to go through it in detail?
I think we need to have a follow-up on a
Yeah.
few different points here.
Okay.
I think, this is what I think we should do, is maybe, we'll make a list of what we have to do, and we should probably workshop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause at this point, we're talking the holidays.
All of
Right,
that.
food
right,
allowance.
yeah.
So if- as long as you have a list, Jerry,
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
what we need to cover later,
yeah,
and especially the things that have a fiscal note that need to be budgeted.
absolutely.
So I think there was a fairly lengthy sort of compensation performance evaluation section, so we just made it a little, I don't love having like the whole process written on an employee handbook, cause those things can change, and just to say that, you know, what I recommend during a 6-month probationary period, always, what I forgot to say to the public also is that during a 6-month probationary period, the town can separate with an employee without due process. However, you can't, it's not good practice to never have a conversation with the employee, and at 5 months and 3 weeks you say, we don't want you here anymore, right? So, I like people checking in at 2-month and 4-month with written documentation, and then, you know, going that route in case you do, you know, it's not working out. And then an annual, or I'm actually recommending, most people hate performance appraisals and most people hate giving them. I rather would see something more along the lines, since it's typically in municipal government, not tied to any money, have more of a check-in every 6 months with a questionnaire of like, how do you think things are going, how can we develop you, you know, what are things you can work on, and having a more of a conversation, so we didn't put in the process on here.
Is there any form that you provide or anything like that for those 6-month check-ins, just to?
I do.
Okay, yeah, cause I just think what's really important for employees too is being able to say, here's some places I wanna grow, and at least writing down, maybe I wanna learn more about ATV registration or something.
You would think the state or GPCOG or someplace would have just like a best practices way for municipalities to deal with this type of thing, and it would just be a common process. Here's the form, you can find it on the main page or something. You know, seems like, you know, it's an important feature, and why not all of us kind of march in the same?
That's a very great question.
Yeah.
I will say, that's a very good question, but typically in Maine, and I can say it because I've lived here my whole life, Mainers like their own.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
My family's been here for 4 generations, we just wanna do it different to be the main way.
Yeah, so, okay, safety is just a new, again, if you have, I forget, do you have, November, Maine municipal for
We don't have
Words
words.
and nuance,
Who carries your
this
workers'
person
comp?
have,
Oh,
clerk,
coverage.
deputy,
MMA.
staff.
So either with MMA or anyone else, if you have a safety policy in your handbook, you get a credit. Not that we're just putting in there for that reason, it's also we follow it, but it's always good to have a safety policy in there. Fitness for duty requirement is new, meaning if somebody sees that somebody is not physically capable of doing their job, the employer has a right to send them for fitness for duty. Maybe that they developed some sort of disability over time, and that we have to kind of talk about how that's gonna work going forward, and so that's an important piece of.
And that's just because, I mean, I know we're required to make reasonable accommodations, but this is saying, because I've worked places where someone had suffered stroke or something like that, and they didn't wanna act like it was impacting their job, and finally someone said, hey, this is impacting your job, but we can make it work for you, and it kind of took the pressure off them at that point then.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
Or there may, oftentimes, and my husband was a farmer, and now he's been in excavation, he's 62 years old, and like he can't, if he gets to the point in his, that he can't physically perform his regular job, same thing with sort of a lot of these physical jobs, then we've gotta have those discussions about like how can we sort of is it early retirement, is it like those conversations, but we gotta have a medical document to be able to have that, state that. Workplace violence protection is not a new policy, it's just new in your handbook. Drug-free workplace policy has been updated.
Can I ask a question about that, as a former drug prosecutor? You list the Federal Controlled Substances Act, which is different than the Maine statute.
Yep.
And federal statute includes marijuana.
Yep.
which the issue we have in our OUI cases is, you know, it stays in your system.
Right.
So, under this statute, under this policy, anybody who smokes marijuana in their off time, can that be in their system? How do you determine?
So that, yeah, great question. So the state of Maine has said that we don't have to have a separate state of Maine policy if you already have a CDL policy. You just have to refer to, so in other words, your CDL folks can't smoke pot, like they can't use marijuana, but your other folks can. So I think this is written the right way, but I'll double check because this is the sort of common, you know, you can't, I think when we listed out all of the drugs, that was in the substance abuse policy that is specific to CDL versus the non-CDL drug. And I think in this one, is it on,
So Josh, is your question essentially?
So my question is essentially, there's the paragraph that says, being under the influence of illegal drugs, alcohol, or substances of abuse on the town's property is prohibited. One of the issues we run into is, how do you know when somebody is under the influence? And it's not defined here.
so in practice, not in policy, so MMA provides a couple times a year, you should have at least one or two people on staff that have gone through the reasonable suspicion training through MMA, and they're they're obviously not law enforcement, but that's them allowed to be the people that can predict, they go through a training in terms of whether or not somebody feels like they're impacted by, by an impairment of whatever that case may be. So you should have a couple of trained people in the town that go through that training to be able to determine whether or not there is reasonable suspicion. Is that your question?
I mean, I just don't like the way I just don't like it. I mean, to me, there's a lot open because, I run the treatment court in Antioch County. We had somebody who had marijuana in their system, seemed like forever. You get somebody who just doesn't like that person. Why don't you go get tested? Something like that, and it's in your system.
Yeah.
If it's above a certain level, which is fairly low, you're under the influence. And so.
So I don't think that, and I am very curious to I wanna read through that again, cause I completely understand what you're saying. And you really can't send somebody for drug testing unless there is a real documented reasonable suspicion. And so then that becomes a potential, that's why you just don't have anyone say, hey, I think so-and-so smells like whatever, and you act on that. You can't act on just somebody saying something, they have to have the appropriate training.
So my question there is kind of with Josh is, so it's not on practice, I try to be positive, but with these things, try to think about worst case scenario. You have someone who has the training, they don't care for somebody else in the office, and they say, this person's behavior checks all the boxes, now they need to go for a drug test. Person comes back that tests positive for marijuana, might not have participated in 7 days, so they weren't under the influence, but now they can say, look, I thought they were under the influence, and now this person tested positive, so does this cause for termination? Alcohol is different because it's there's an easy test, or, this person was above the legal limit, or, I don't know, I would assume our workplace expectation is 0, not 0.08, but, that's where it just, I don't understand it, I know a fraction of what Josh has seen, so it's I'm just curious.
No, those are great points. I think everyone's grappling with the recreational use of marijuana, period. I think it's definitely a hot topic and it's something that
On the medical
needs to,
side of things too.
to be continually discussed. These are policies that the lawyers have recommended that we put in here, but it doesn't mean, I'm not a person that just goes by that either, if it doesn't make sense, let's figure out what it doesn't make sense and make sure. We can't, avoid every sort of worst case scenario, but we
Yeah.
can do our best to try to do that, so I'm happy to look into that.
I put this on our list of maybe talk more.
Okay.
Like, does that work for you?
Sure.
Cause I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, we just had an OUI trial where someone was under the influence of prescription medication.
Yeah.
Which falls under the statute, I mean.
Yeah.
Do they show up under the influence of the prescription medication? I mean, it's just, you get it, like, I can't smoke marijuana in my job because it's still illegal under federal statute. And so it just, there are things and.
No, happy to have more of those discussions, so yeah.
Yeah,
that's
well,
what it was.
let's do it, and it's making it very difficult to get public works employees.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Really difficult.
It's terrible, that's a killer, at some point federal will come along, don't you think, with, there's so many states that now legalize it because this is what's crippling our public works, that and, pay and all of that, and so,
Just death by 1,000 cuts on some of that stuff.
Tobacco use, I think is new, just, and again, I don't have the old one right in front of me, but it's basically, talking about vaping, I think chewing, tobacco products in general, are prohibited from smoking or using tobacco products in town-owned or leased vehicles, as well as, anywhere on the town premises except in authorized or designated. So a designated state law is that it has to be 20 feet away from a door or window. So I don't know how many smokers are here, but they have to abide by the state law.
How's that work for smokeless tobacco? How's it work for smokeless tobacco? Or even,
No chewing tobacco.
or chewing tobacco, or
In plow trucks.
is this, yeah, that's what I was.
This is what I'm
It's
talking
good
about.
work
Chewing
plan.
tobacco.
Well, then you get into tobacco alternatives like
Well, we-
Zins and
Well,
all
it
those
says,
sorts of.
It says-
using any tobacco products
Yeah.
in town-owned or leased vehicles, so.
And, some towns don't have that policy in there because a lot of their staff chew tobacco, and it's a very, very difficult habit to break.
Yes.
And if you don't wanna have a policy that you can't enforce, or you're not gonna plan on enforcing.
Right.
So again, it's sort of with the makeup of the town,
So, my question too is like nicotine pouches that might not be classified as tobacco, like.
Right.
Is
that would be a deterrent for like, I believe that would be acceptable. This is tobacco products, not non-tobacco products.
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
well,
and tell them to take a look at this
but-
in case.
Yeah, I mean, my only question is just cause it's like, you have non-tobacco products that have the nicotine content of tobacco, things like smokeless tobacco pouches or nicotine pouches that have 10 milligrams of nicotine in it. Does that fall under this? Like,
I mean, technically that's a tobacco product,
I
isn't it?
don't know, I don't know under with here, maybe it is, like, I don't know,
I think
I'm
some of
probably
those-
overthinking
yeah.
this too.
Some of those
Think about
patches
it.
too are used to help get it to stop,
I worked with guys who eat nicotine,
chewing,
it's
so-
candy.
So that's what's common, and again, these discussions are great, I think they're great, but we're, at some point, sometimes we,
You gotta let it go.
Yeah.
right, you go down a rabbit hole, you can't get out, this isn't gonna protect us from everything, it's gonna give us guidelines and things to follow, and then we will always have those unique, one-offs, and then we'll have to deal with them. Workers' comp is just new in here, explaining sort of what it is, et cetera. This is also, we'll need to update once PFML, paid family medical leave is effective. That appendix A is family and medical leave, again, that's gonna be all updated based on my policy I'll provide. Now we're at the technology and social media. And this is a very updated, social media policy because of the free speech, public employee ability. It's probably not the same social media policy that you would have in a private sector.
My thing was there's nothing about use of artificial intelligence in here.
Yeah,
And I just know on our side, there was a moratorium for 6 months until they developed a policy. And it dictates things like AI use is appropriate if it's these tools.
Yeah.
If you're never passing it off as your own work, so you're still saying, this was looked over by a person, or, you know, you cite it as assisting in generating images or whatever. I didn't know if that is necessary at the municipal level, like we.
It is,
have-
we're working on
Okay.
one. Again, we're all in the sort of the same boat with how, what's gonna be okay and what's appropriate, so we haven't even
Cause there's
collectively haven't,
very useful applications, but at
Right.
the same time, you know,
So that will be an appendix
It will-
to the appendix.
yeah, it'll probably be, right, it'll probably be either in B or a separate one, once we have it all vetted out between, you know, all the lawyers and everybody else.
I'm sure we're not the only person you have to worry about AI policy
No.
with too, so.
No. We really liked the employee expenses and use of town credit card because this policy actually came out of situations where people were, it was pretty lackadaisical about utilizing it and then people were using it for, you know, other things, et cetera. So, this is a pretty, you know, strict policy to follow, which I think is important. There's a vehicle use policy in here that's I don't believe new, again, talks about, you know, if somebody, you know, takes a vehicle home, et cetera. And then the final appendix E is the substance abuse for the CEO driver. And that's it, folks.
Thank you, it's just really exciting to get a copy of. And frankly, like for how we manage things, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things to follow up on is not bad for a document this size, you know?
No, this is great, and, you know, what we try to do is really like think about sort of, you know, the town of Durham, and I don't know the town of Durham well, but trying to compare it a little bit with other, you know, we're not a city, we're not, but you know, there are a lot of towns your size essentially that are, you know, following the same, you know, procedures and policies, and that's why, I always like the attorney to review it, even though some of these policies have been vetted many times, it's still always good to have a fresh set of eyes to look at it with the attorneys that you folks use, so.
Our local flavor.
Just a format issue, I'm wondering if, I work process at Beth Ann Works, process leader. Maybe we should put a header, use a header on this template, so on the top of every page, it says employee handbook with the dates.
Did you write that down? Okay.
What would you like?
It's an easy
I
enough
love
to
it.
do, it's easy
No, I know, but I'll
They
just
have
forget.
headers right built into the
Yes.
template.
Great idea, excellent. You should probably have, well, the other thing, the cover sheet should probably be your, the header.
It should be a signature.
And also your, not emblem.
yeah.
Seal.
Logo, seal, yeah, I'll make it, if you know somebody that can free stuff up, like, that.
Well, we could use AI, but we
That's
gotta
great.
make sure it's in line with the policy.
Yeah, so I would have something, you know, very Durham related on the cover sheet, but I like that idea, thank you.
This is a really well done.
Yeah,
I mean, I read it over and I had just a few things which we covered. I found one area where we didn't close a parenthesis. And that was one, the only thing.
I whispered my
Okay.
Oh, thank you, I love people that can proofread really well, that's so great.
But that was it.
I am not one of them, so I appreciate it.
So,
That was it.
I have a question for later. It's not so much so before here, but of all the towns that you work with, how many town managers would know the ins and outs of these policies and be able to put this book together by themselves?
Not many.
Okay.
I mean, the funny thing about a town manager is they're supposed to be the personnel officer, they're supposed to be, like, they have all of these names. And they're really not, like, that's an impossible expectation for a town manager. So, and I'm certainly, you know, you could probably hire, you know, any other consultant. I know that, like, if you don't have the right policies in place, it can be a huge liability.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big onus for us wanting to work with you, is that our number one goal, besides, you know, being fiscally responsible with our dollars, is to mitigate risk and prevent issues. And this was an area that Jerry brought to us as human resources was a big area we were we're at risk with, so this seems like a really great step to kind of solidify some of these questions. And also, I think what's great about this is, it's just nice as an employee, I found when I work places, to be able to look and read what the process is supposed to be, rather than have to go ask a question, maybe if it's in a question that I don't want my employer to know I'm considering, like, what's my leave options and stuff like that. But at the same time, having something to reference, so if someone tells me, no, you're not allowed to do this, I'll be like, pretty sure I am, or, I think it's helpful to have that, available. So this is really, not many people are like, oh, I'm really excited about the new HR policy, but I am.
I go, oh, that's good. Well, I'm happy to help out. This is a great team effort and it took us some time, but we wanted to get it right and ensure that it made sense for the employee and to, I know you have one employee at least here that I'm hoping it's very beneficial for them, just like, because, you do look at other towns and, all that information is public, so, it's good to get to where we need to be. Right.
And really appreciate, the focus on where can we add in something that's beneficial, but still reasonable for the taxpayer and all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
Like the birthday idea, Jerry, I think that was great that you're thinking that way, like, what can we do?
Right. No, this was I learned a lot. It can get complicated and I don't have the specialty in this.
Well, public sector's so different too.
Oh, it was just very eye-opening and, everybody had input along the way, so it really was a group effort. The last person was Kristen that gave her input, which was very helpful.
Absolutely.
So I'm, for wanting to get this done in the second month of my employment and I'm ending my third year and we're getting it done, I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, do we have any more questions for Betsy?
The only thing I would say is, where in this handbook do we need to be sure we have some kind of compliance document written so we are making sure that we follow this? Meaning like where if we have to keep records on certain things, where are those records kept, the whole
You mean
process behind this handbook. Not everything needs it, but, there are pieces of it that we need to just make sure we're doing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the checklist, the process,
Yeah,
those
whether
types of
it's
things.
a checklist
Yeah.
or a policy, a small policy that's a one pager that just says, this is what we do to make sure we're compliant to section 8.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's pretty process driven in here, but we can look through it in that lens to say where does this live if it's not in here in terms of for example, I'll just use the, ADA piece, a reasonable accommodation. We actually have the process. Some people don't put the process in, it's written someplace else. We actually have the process in here. This is what you do if you come up to this situation.
Yeah, like an example, if we're gonna give all the employees evaluations mid-year, or we're gonna do 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month check-in for new employees. Where's the new employee list? Is there evidence that we've done that?
Oh, sure.
It was right in the file.
So those are the right, so
Yeah.
that's the checklist that I was referring to too. The checklist will also be signed by the employee and then an onboarding and put in a personnel file. Yep, so great, but we'll make sure that we have all that covered.
So, I guess, what are the next steps as far as getting together, a group again, and hammering this out? We've got some time, because most of this won't take effect until.
So you guys are going to go back through, so I guess we can work backwards from that, right? With your meeting and going through it with edits.
Well, we wanna know what you all want. I think we need input from you to make the edits.
Because we need to talk budget.
So, for me, there's a few things that are just a policy discussion, like our holidays and those sorts of things. But things that have a fiscal note, we might need to get an idea of what that translates to here. Now, I know we have to be sensitive, it's not like you're gonna come and say, these are 4 employees who are taking,
Right,
not, but saying, if you could give us this is what it looks like if every employee did or it didn't, because I know that initially we budget for the fully encumbered position, but then once someone starts going forward, we kind of just budget for what they've been taking, moving forward, because we talked about that a little bit, and so understanding that fiscal note there for some of those things. So some of these, it sounds like you're already working on, like the AI policy is something that's already being developed, but I think that maybe we need to have a workshop that talks about things that don't have a fiscal note, and then a workshop that talks about things that do have a fiscal note.
you don't think we could bang that all out in one meeting?
I mean, we could try,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it isn't a whole lot, right?
Well, I'm looking at what I see written down for us to follow up on our discussion about the holiday schedule. You're already working on the compensation charts, so I think that once you have those developed, that lateral transfer is just a thumbs up. The dollar amount on equipment and clothing allowance for public works is something, the discussion on what we wanna do on the retirement options, the insurance costs, and then, looping that birthday idea into holidays as well. So like holidays / leave, so, those are what I see us as having.
And also your contract policy.
Yeah, sorry, I just had stats, reasonable suspicion training for the drug policy is one thing I had written down, so just making sure we're square there, but I'd like to lean on Josh's prosecutor brain for that, so.
So you and I will talk when we'll schedule it at some point, I'll keep you up to date on where we are.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if there's things that we asked first tonight that you're all are like, I gotta do a little bit of follow-up and homework to figure out why. We'll figure out the more details before you can answer that, take that time first, you know?
Yeah, so like the Mission Square, if you're gonna consider Mission Square or, the AC plan versus the AN plan, maybe.
Yeah, well,
So we'll get that all.
And everything you presented and everything you presented tonight, at least for me, this is an option you could consider. Sounds like something that enriches the employee's experience here, which is something that builds a better culture and is something that I wanna hear the details of. And in a perfect world, it'd be like, yeah, let's do it all. But at the same time, in the functional world, what's it gonna cost, what's the added work, that's where I wanna kinda hear what the perfect is, and then we can kinda go from there, so.
And are your workshop, just for purposes of understanding, are the workshops essentially this?
Yeah, we would just
Okay.
put nothing, we would have, essentially, it would be this, but we'd have nothing else on the agenda, so you don't have to wait through those things, it would just be, hey, we're signing the bills and the payable, but we're just gonna work on this only.
Gotcha, okay.
And would you like us to work on a wage table, or do you wanna be part of working on that wage table?
I don't think you can get valuable input from me on a wage table for municipal workers, I think you know more than I
I
am.
think get it going started.
Yeah, I think we looked at, I think, what we presented, then you folks can sort of ask any questions, but
Okay,
I have a lot, so I do a lot of union negotiations, so I have all of that data current all the time. I know that MMA is coming, they have a deadline to have everybody put their salary information into MMA, but that's, I haven't looked at it in a while, but that's not always a great comparison, because oftentimes they plug in numbers that somebody that's worked there for 40 years and somebody that's worked there for 2,
Yeah.
difference, so.
Yeah,
but they did a study,
And Gray did a great study, so yeah, we have plenty of
data.
you're right, and then it will just be a matter of this is the recommendation for your town and, go through that, so.
yeah.
Awesome.
Great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, nice meeting you. Alright, other new business we have here before we wrap up, Jerry, just email explaining grant opportunities for GP Coffee grant.
Yeah, so thanks, so George got an offer to apply for a grant, just want to get authorization. It's a $75,000 grant with no local match that work with GP Cog. And really what that $75,000 would do, it's kind of seed money to kind of lay out a plan of developing a agriculture and alternative energy economic development district.
He presented that info to us last week.
Can we
I thought we gave you the thumbs up.
This
This is a different one.
This is a different.
Oh, so this is in addition, yeah, it works for me,
It's a no-brainer.
yeah.
Right.
Alright, all in favor?
Well.
Need a motion?
Sorry, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Josh, Rebecca, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposition? Seeing none.
Thank you.
George was just saying, it's amazing the amount of, juice we've been squeezing out of GP Cog this year.
It's awesome. It's
Yeah,
just really awesome.
I like to think, you know, part of it, I wanna make sure you get credit here, Jerry, I think that you built a lot of confidence in GP Cog, that Durham is a town that can deliver. And so I think that they see that, and they know that in a time where they're being mindful of where they're investing their energy, they know that with the team we have here, we can bring things to fruition and keep the ball rolling, and I think it's paying dividends for us, so I think it's a big testament to your leadership on this.
Thank you.
Alright, manager report.
Okay, so, you know, things in the office are just day-to-day stuff. I don't have a lot of information, just some stuff that I wanna share with you. So the vote that we had bid, so there was only one bid. And it went for $3,888.
There's only one bid?
One bid. I know,
That's so surprising.
yeah.
What was
I think there was a young kid from Buxton.
I was gonna bid more than that, I didn't.
The other thing I wanna share with you, so every 2 years I have to fill out a municipal solid waste report for the DEP. What I do is, they ask a bunch of questions and I go in there and I put in what Casella has for us for tonnage for the year and all that sort of stuff. And then the closed bin, and the state has this like goal of reducing household waste by 50% through recycling, composting, and that sort of stuff in closed bin. So we're about 32% right now.
We've reduced 32%?
No, we're at 32%, we're not at that 50% reduction of municipal solid waste through recycling.
Sorry, I'm not understanding, when you say we're at 32%.
Right, so that's what we're,
32% of what?
of our garbage is through recycling and.
Oh, okay, so you're saying, alright,
And their goal is 50.
but that doesn't capture at-home composting,
Well, right, it doesn't,
you know,
it's what we're collecting.
or
right?
donation
But
of
some
clothing.
municipalities have composting programs that you can get data from, so if you're doing it at home, you will capture that data. But the closed bin, I just want, so I called them up to see what we're gonna, we're at 3/4 of the year, we had 6 tons of clothes picked up.
Wow,
So
That's
we're
great.
doing about 2 tons for every 3 months. So every year, it stays at about 8 tons. Now, I don't think that's getting tossed out of garbage, I think most people take their clothes to Goodwill or whatnot, but still, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
no, that's pretty good because
You know,
you put a box aside that you keep saying you're gonna take to Goodwill and you forget and you finally just throw it out.
Yes, it was kind of nice. And it kind of brought us like to,
I'm taking a box in my house, it's like that.
doing that in the report, it brought us to like 30% up to 32%, so
Yeah,
it helps.
but I think that reduction is a big part of the solid waste committee, just like not putting things in the trash can saves on tonnage.
Is there a deadline of meeting that 50%?
No,
No.
no, it's just that, it's a goal they have, it's not a mandate.
But they didn't have a date or a year of
No.
meeting that goal?
So we're gonna be switching our phone and internet companies. Our contract with Comcast is up, so we went out to bid. And we're gonna switch to Consolidated. We're gonna end up getting fiber, and we're gonna end up saving about 15,000 in 5 years. So it's saving just south of $300 a month by switching. So that's gonna be taking place fairly quickly, so we just don't have, we'll have
That's
that
awesome.
in there, but that's pretty good.
And
Plus,
faster.
we have better, faster, so our streaming will be better, it'll all be better, so.
When you
And
say
it's-
switching, will that be every building?
Yeah,
That
all-
will be dark fiber?
Yeah, and it's,
They can't tap the Eureka Center while they're at it?
Do we have a timeline on the Eureka Center?
they were just here, we need an actual electrical box upstairs in the Eureka Center. an actual one that's working, so Calvin will work on that, maybe come back. Continue that, to get that installed.
Jerry, are you keeping a list of the, I'll call it waste reduction, the cost reduction things that you're doing throughout the year?
You
should, if you're not.
I know, I get it, but I'm small, I didn't even have lunch until 3, so I try to do what I can do every day, but I can add it to the list, but I can't promise you it's gonna get done, cause I'm maxed as it is, you know, that's why I was like, you know, a little bit, you know, to check these boxes about, that's like another job to do on top of, we're pretty maxed out, you know, so there's a lot to do, and we keep adding these little tasks, it's gonna burn me right out,
15-year-olds don't have.
yeah, right?
It's just, I get where you're coming from, that it's a challenge, because we want to be able to show your success.
I understand.
And we know you're the consummate professional, just put your head down and find
Get it
savings.
done, you know?
But even if it's just at the end of the year, if you have the time pulling up, what contracts should I change? And, like, cause we know it seems like every meeting you're coming in, I found a way to save $500 here, $1,000 here, 15,000 here, and it's like that, those nickels are adding up to dimes pretty quickly. We want you to get the proper credit for it.
I mean, you can ask Jessica, I mean, I have employees saying that they're telling me stuff, and I don't remember it, and they're saying, well, we told you, isn't it? Aren't they?
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, I'm smoked,
Yeah.
I'm busy. I'm not trying to make an excuse, it's a reason, you know, it's not. So that's a good thing, we'll save some money there. So GPCOG is all holding a public forum on LD 1829, that's that housing. That's gonna be 25th in Scarborough, so George and I are gonna attend that. Cause that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Affordable housing and housing, so we'll keep that. So, and we may have someone to fill the one of the PW positions. We're working on it right now, so we'll still have one left. But I do wanna share some, where we're at with that, just so you have a kind of an understanding why we're struggling, I think, or part of the reason. And there's no employees' names on this, but it kind of illustrates kind of like where we're at. So, this is just a down here, and I put this together in like 15 minutes. So, what you're seeing is employee 1, and these are our employees. This is the wage they're making, and this is how many years they've been there. And these towns down here, the lighter ones, not the darker ones, because folks probably wouldn't travel to those locations, but these are actual job advertisements on the MMA's website. And these are the starting wages for them. So I kind of averaged them over here to the right. So if you call it $24 as an average starting, our employees are below that, and they've got 6 and 9 years here. So those are some of the things that we need to talk about later. That's, we're struggling to fill those seats. So,
Especially what we're hearing tonight, it's, you know, why hire someone who's never done it before when you can call over to a neighboring municipality and say, for an extra 10 minutes, you can make an extra $4 an hour.
and Calvin's nervous, you know, because when wintertime comes, we need people in those plow trucks, or his phone's gonna go up. So we think we have someone, well, hopefully that works out. You know, the last couple, they didn't last a couple weeks. One guy showed up, I think, 2 days and never showed up again. So we have all that onboarding cost, and you do all that, and I think the rate of pay attracts the people you get, you know, so. But anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, this helps, thank you.
You know, and just to kind of get you thinking about that. And that's about it. Things are going good. I mean, we're right in the middle of summer. Staff's doing great. They really, it's a good place. It's a good.
I mean, sorry, real quick to go back to this, some of this right here, in some instances, this could be captured with a new policy around people who are taking or not taking insurance, you know? Like that's this is where, like when you're looking at wages, when you're thinking wage hourly, but also in total compensation, discussions like what we had tonight, well, if you're not taking health insurance, you get 50% of a single premium, that could
That's
be
real money.
what keeps you in town, you know? Especially if someone's got, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, that could be what says, hey, you know what, maybe my spouse and I will go on their plan and I'm gonna reject this because the economics make some sense there, you know?
but anyway, it's just quick data, and I think,
Yeah, it's
using
important to
data
have.
is your, data is your friend, it kind of helps you make those decisions, so. That's pretty much it, right? Yeah.
Agree.
So that concludes my report. Oh, I will be going to the Maine Town City Managers Conference tomorrow, at 6 in the morning.
Where's that
Yeah,
at?
it is.
Long day?
Yeah, they are long days because you do your conference sessions and then you hobnob all night,
Yeah.
and then you,
Where's it at?
that's at Sunday River,
Ooh.
yeah. They're good sessions, really.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It gives me a good time to network with folks and ask them questions, so,
You staying up there? Or you-
Yeah.
It's perfect, I was gonna say, it's a long drive, Moose Country.
so. Anyway,
Cool. Board member reports, I just wanted to say, really happy to see this stuff moving forward, I know that this has been a topic of discussion a lot, but also, I wanted to just recognize, the fire department. Since our last meeting, we had a brush fire in the woods that was pretty colossal response in the middle of the night, and it was fought mostly in the dark, and I think these local municipalities we have great firefighters, but when people have to like go fight something that's not as common, this is the biggest brush fire or forest fire that chief has seen since he's been here, but you know, the Forest Service showed up and the way they saw the town working with all the local support, you would have thought that we were doing this every week, it was really smooth. And I also think that sometimes it's really important to highlight the mutual aid we get. I think 9 departments from the town, from the surrounding areas sent staff to help fight that fire, you know. So really impressive on chief there, so.
good.
Some cool photos in the news blast too,
Yes.
Yeah.
self-promoting there a little bit, but. Josh,
Nothing at this point, thank you.
Deb,
Just wanted to bring up, we did have, I don't know if it was an accident or something where a road was closed, I meant to remember the details, but it didn't come out on the text.
Oh, the Rabbit Road,
Um,
Rabbit and Route 9.
Yeah, we haven't had many text things recently.
Yeah, that was it.
I think Jerry's explained this to me as when they happen, you know.
Right, what do you
and-
do?
And
well,
so I think, I don't know if
that's a
I'll let you speak for it, but
I
don't know.
wanted to jump in real quick there, that's one thing that's sticky with that is, like, some of the incidents have involved minors, and some of the incidents have involved, fatalities recently, and, I think that the chief is a little hesitant to project roads closed, because oftentimes that turns into, let's go see what's going on, and at least in one instance, it was a very, very grim thing that's even hard for our staff who have seen grim things to witness. And I think that sometimes those alerts make it a little bit worse, especially when the person's spouse hasn't been alerted that there's been a fatality. So I know that there's been a little, and then the other thing too is I know that part of it is depending on who's available. And so I've been kind of, in my brain, going back and forth on this, like, do we do every road closure? Do we not? The fire department puts something out on their social media, like, I think there's an opportunity here to think a little bit more about a policy, but I think it gets a little tricky when you're starting with minors and fatalities and stuff like
Well,
that.
I completely understand, but I'm a resident and I
Yeah.
don't know if there's extenuating circumstances that would prevent it to be a reasonable thing to see on the text
Mhm.
message alert.
To me, that was for notifications, and a road closure happens all the time. And to me, you know, if it's like, you know, there's going to be traffic and control at that scene, So, to me, that's not a big deal.
Yeah,
I don't know, that's
we
what-
did it more for like 136 when that was.
They have to
being paid.
recalculate.
Yeah, like that makes a lot of sense to alert people or for storms or school closures, but
Yeah, I just go back and forth there, cause like you said, Josh, there's traffic control on a lot of these road closures that's set up to reroute. Whereas with like some instances where they have to like the police have to be there to redraw an entire incident. That might be where, okay, we know that this whole road's gonna be closed for,
And
Okay,
that one did come out when they,
that one
when they
came
did
out
the
when they were
reconstruction
gonna
down
have
here.
to
We
do
did,
the
but
reconstruction. But
this particular one, I didn't even know about it until it was over.
which one?
Yeah.
The one with that rabbit road where the dog escaped. She come and told me about it. I didn't know anything about it until,
I don't either.
you know, so, you know, I mean, let's just kind of like, let's talk through it. There's an accident. The chief gets called. Is the chief supposed to like, okay, well, wait a minute, because I gotta let staff know that we need a text message, but yet I'm not there.
Maybe we don't need a text
Yeah.
message for everything.
Right.
I don't
maybe,
think that
maybe we
that's-
just get Chief's opinion on this, I think.
He had said it's not policy to, when there
We
is
have
a
to
car
notify the whole
accident.
town,
Yeah,
right.
he said that it's not, that's not the policy for the text messaging, so I think that pretty much explains it all.
Yeah,
An
I also
accident
think-
can be defined.
I also think
like,
sometimes that
right,
we see people self-proclaim that there's road closures, when there really isn't, there's just traffic control. And so like, I know that there's times where, and working with Chief, I know that there's times where a response, they say, we need to close off Rabbit Road at the other end because we just can't be turning people around. Other times it's show up, this car's gonna be off the road quickly, we'll be able to get one-way traffic through. So I don't know, it might just be worth getting, but managing the expectation too for what the town expects is like, it's tough, cause some people are gonna want every text in the world and then they're gonna go leatherneck at everything and it's, yeah. I don't know what the answer there.
I'm not opposed to it, putting up text whenever we can, it's just gotta be timely and you gotta know about it.
But I think like having a policy of if it's an accident, like let them deal with it, that's not, like they can go around, it'll be fine, yeah, it's not our.
If the chief notifies you, he thinks it's important, I think that's,
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
I think those sorts of things are his discretion. Like, you know, when we had all the flooding, I think that's saying this is
Yeah.
flooded, like, I mean, for example, like during that, my kid was at a friend's house and I went to get her. I couldn't go, like, like the kid's dad, we worked together, like we tried walking through the water barefoot, I'm like, I'm not doing that, we turned around, it was too cold. Like that sort of thing, that's different, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll never forget the sound of 136 flooding, and it was weird. But an accident, I don't know if that's important enough.
But yeah, I'm happy to do it.
I think we should.
I didn't actually mean every time there's an accident, there should be a text. I thought I saw something about a road closure, but I could have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And even if it was closure,
or not, you know.
yeah.
They didn't even close it, it was just an accident, which is not to diminish what happened.
Right. But I think sometimes if people see through other
Yeah.
mediums, like, oh, the road closed, they're like, oh, Rabbit Road's closed, it's like, I don't think Rabbit Road actually did get closed.
But it's funny, cause she did find the dog, called up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I did find the dog, called the dog animal control officer, it was after 5, he said, well, it's after 5, I'm not gonna come get it. She's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this dog? So they finally, after a while, got hold of the owner, found him through the call, and they came and got the dog.
I saw the picture of the dog here.
Yeah.
Rebecca, do you have anything for? Okay, cool. Alright, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, any discussion, all in favor? See none, it's approved, upcoming meetings, select board meeting, August 26th, fire station at 6:30. Town office is closed on Monday, September 1st, 2025 for Labor Day. Planning board meeting, September 3rd, 2025, that's fire station at 6:30. Agricultural committee meeting at September 3rd, 2025 at the Eureka Center at 7. And then the upcoming discussions for the select board is in August 26th. We're gonna finalize goals and objectives. We're also gonna do the town manager annual review and contract renewal. And that's what we have on the schedule. Do we have any need for an executive session? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Josh, do I have a second? Ben? Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, unanimous.
Good meeting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Right on time.